Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Keats and Ozzy. We're not great. We're just okay. Brought to you by our friends at Belle Tire, John Keating, and three-time Stanley Cup winner Chris Osgood with you. We're excited because we have a special guest tonight, Mike Tirico, who is really, really famous. When did you know that you were famous?
That's a great guest. I'm looking so forward to it.
Yeah.
A bit of nerves for me talking to him. You're used to this. But when did I know? Make the NHL in general?
Well, when people began to recognize you and you know,
in Detroit?
yeah, or anywhere. I mean, you were big. You were
Detroit
big
was
in Glens Falls playing with the Adirondack Red Wings.
But, John, there was 9 feet of snow there. Now it was hard to see anybody. You had to dig your way to your door. Darren McCarty lived above me. I lived with Mike Castleman. Now, not a lot of people can say
Wait.
Darren
So what's
McCarty lived
the story with McCarty living above you? I mean, what was that like?
It was, you know the band Motley Crue? It was a lot like that as we played hockey. He lived with his wife at the time above us. And Mac would always
You'd hear noises? Would you hear noises?
Not the right noises, the wrong ones. Mac would always be moving. His feet would always go whenever. Sometimes you just wanted some alone time and rest up. And Mac was obsessed with NHL 94. I don't know if anybody knows that original game. And he always wanted to have a tournament every night. And we didn't want to have a tournament every night. And also, he was young, living with his wife at the time. Nothing against wives. They're fantastic.
You weren't
They're
married
great.
at the time.
I wasn't. And either was my roommate. So Mac wanted to get some of his guy time in. And we always didn't. So he would come down every night. We'd have to have a tournament. And Darren was living it up then. We know Darren's story. And he wasn't very good at NHL 94 and thought he was. It would be like, I would compare it to when you're putting in time with somebody that's not very good at something and being nice and act, oh, it's okay, Darren. You're doing great tonight. You're doing fantastic.
Little pat on the head.
Yeah, you're doing great. And he'd come right down, sit right in front of our TV, hook the game up, and he'd be right in the middle, and we'd have to work our way around him, and he'd be ready to go. He'd have it on a piece of paper. He'd write up the tournament that we were playing that night like it was any different from any other night. It was the exact same, and we would play. And that was the 5 guys that were there, if I can recall, because then you had veterans, was Marty Lapointe, Darren McCarty, I think Drapes was there, Jamie Pusher, and myself.
Oh, my
We're the only
gosh.
young guys there. Needless to say, the rookie party was like that old TV show Survivor, the original series, because it got boring after too many years of that. But it was like Survivor. I remember the next day I was in the shower at the rink and I was sitting on a Gatorade container just hoping that I could get myself together to practice. But you're with a bunch of older guys there. So Adirondack was great. It was a small town. Used to eat at this restaurant called Poopies every day. They had more grease on the grill.
Poopies?
Yeah, it was like right here you sat 5
Somebody
feet
opened
away.
a restaurant named Poopies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the bar was called Dango's. Fitzgerald's.
Dangles, okay, yeah.
I called it Fitzgerald's because our trainer his last name was Fitzgerald, and he was in there every day. So it was Dango Fitzgerald's. But Glens Falls, Newell Brown, who coached a long time, was their coach.
Sure.
They had won the Calder Cup the year before, so it was a popular team, so I was fortunate. Then I come to Detroit, who, popular team at the time, just hadn't won. So I would say back to your original question, which is this was happening when you have a bit of ADD. A bit, is probably at like 21, I would say. Because I was here when I was 20. Wasn't really allowed to go to
All
the
right,
bar.
I want to get to that story in a second, but just to finish the McCarty story.
Yeah.
So he is with Mrs. McCarty
Yes.
at the time.
At the time, yes.
And I would guess Mrs. McCarty at the time wasn't enamored with how much time he was spending downstairs with the rest
I think
of the crew.
Cheryl, who is the mother of his children, a great lady, would probably say she sent him down. Or She was tired of him. I think it was a combination of 70 Cheryl, 30 Darren, because Darren could be a handful. It was all hands on board. Great guy, wonderful times we had there. Wouldn't change it for the world where he lived and what we did. It was called the Mohican Motel, which was a motel but with rooms also.
All right, so you popped to Detroit, and now you're a member of the Red Wings as they're getting good and
Yes.
about to make a splash. And how overwhelming could that be to a much younger Chris Osgood getting recognized all the time?
Well, I came from, I was born in Peace River, way up north in northern Alberta. Lived in Edmonton, Alberta. People know where that is, maybe. And grew up in Medicine Hat, where 25,000 people probably. Like you can, the speed limit's not miles an hour, 25 kilometers. Have you ever tried to drive 50 kilometers an hour or 25 kilometers an hour? Like you can push your car 25 kilometers an hour. And it still takes you like 50 minutes to get across town, or 20, where you can drive from, Novi to downtown Detroit in 20 minutes.
On a good day.
Small town. And I remember coming to Detroit. It was overwhelming for sure. I mean, I had never been on a plane until I went to Buffalo for the draft. And the second time I was on a plane is when I flew to Detroit for training camp. And I stayed at the Hotel Pontchartrain, would walk through was it Cobo Hall then?
Yeah.
Walk through there and through the tunnel and to the Joe. That's how we went to training camp every day. And I was shy then. I'd be like scraping the walls. I didn't want to talk to anybody.
Oh, no, wait. Those were the days
when
you wouldn't talk to anybody.
I was shy.
I miss those days.
I'll never forget. It took me probably, I go down and I come back, probably 3 months till they actually realized I played on the team. Every time I tried again, sir, why are you here? They thought I worked there at the Joe. For real. I couldn't get into the rink.
Your bucket's over there.
I find, like, because you didn't have any, like, ID then.
Right.
You just were known at the door, the Joe.
Exactly,
everybody knew everybody, the ushers. It took me good 3 months to get in there. Didn't really talk to anybody. Didn't really have the best of people's skills.
As opposed to now.
And it took a while, and probably didn't realize, I would say I'm probably going to give it another 22, realizing, this is a pretty big thing. Because then we got a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Noticed a lot. I mean, then there wasn't really social media, so you'd Ray Lane and everybody on the news yourself, sports, and you kind of watch at night, and then the crowds got bigger, and people would start noticing you around town.
So there's a place that used to be in downtown Detroit called the Post, and it's rekindled. There's
a new one downtown.
Yeah. God bless the people that brought the Post back.
Jen Wheeler and company.
But the original. That was the place where the players hung out, and a lot of the citizenry in downtown Detroit.
Because that was the big area. The Tiger Stadium was there.
Sure.
You worked your way up Nebo's, and the rest of the Anchor Bar was down there, which I went to after an opening day, by the way, which was a fantastic performance by myself. But the Post was great. It was like a house party. Everybody knew everybody. You had a great time. The players would go there, and it would be jammed. Like if you had to go pee, John, like you had to go. Like you had to give yourself a good 10 minutes to get from the front to the back. Because have you been in there?
Yes.
You've been in there.
I did. Yeah.
Were you in there when I was in there?
Probably not. But share the story. You told it at a lunch a few years ago. You and Chris Draper, where Scotty Bowman would come looking for you.
So we're in exhibition, and Scotty was on us about what we were doing. Drapes and I, the younger guys in the team. But we'd be asked to do a lot of things. Like we'd be asked to be like a bartender at a bar, or go do a Special Olympics event. So back then, you did a lot of stuff in the community, and we thought we'd go to the Post, the guys that weren't playing, an exhibition. So
preseason,
I guess because I'm with you and we're doing this, I don't have to watch what I'm saying as much anymore that I'm over 50. So I'm there with Jamie Pusher, Bob Asenza, who we traded for Tim Shovelday and Dallas Drake, myself, Anders Eriksson, and Drapes actually didn't go because Drapes was playing. So we're at where we stayed at the Riverfront Apartments, and we're all like, okay, yeah, we're going down to the Post. We'll go for a little while. We're just practicing. Drapes, you'll be okay. We're only playing whatever tomorrow. Drapes is like, no way, because Drapes is like Chuck Norris. He's very, very focused and regimented. So he's not going.
All right.
So we go anyways. We're playing pool in the back. And it's a long bar, not that long, but skinny long, and we're playing pool. And I remember it was Jamie Pusher's getting ready, playing 8-ball, and the DJ, which wasn't really a DJ, it was just the guy that worked there, says, and welcome Scotty Bowman to the house. And we're like, what? Now we're past curfew, obviously. And he comes back, and
you're not just past curfew. You're over the edge a little bit.
But the best is he gives it to us. What time is it? You guys are late. Blah blah blah. Whatever he's saying, and
Anders Eriksson, as I understand it, had his arms around a couple of young ladies. Was that the story?
He was sitting there, and that was what was going on. And the girl asked if that was your grandfather. Well, that wasn't exactly the right thing to say, and that set Scotty off. God bless the guy. He's awesome. I mean, we love Scotty in all respect. He's one of the best, if not the best of all time. And needless to say, Scotty wasn't happy. What time is it? And so he leaves, rifles back. We're like stunned.
He's aware that you've been caught, and you're aware that you've been caught.
Yeah, which was the goal in the end.
Right.
So we get out of there. We go back home. We all go back to where we're staying. And John Wharton, who was a trainer at the time, gets a message because back then you didn't have you get a message machine. Boom, hit it. Beep. 5 men down. 5 men down. Well, there's only 4. So Scotty leaves a message on the machine. I'm John Wharton, Jamie Pusher, Chris Osgood, Bob Asenza, Anders Eriksson. And then he finishes it with like, and I know Chris Draper was there. He was there somewhere. And that made me so happy because Drapes wasn't even there. And then we go to the pregame skate the next day. And he was giving it to Drapes more than any of us. And Drapes is yelling at me from the corner because I'm in net. I got the mask on. You're hiding behind the mask. You're hiding behind the mask. And I got out of it scot-free. And Drapes wasn't even there, being ready, being regimented, being Chris Draper, and may as well have been there anyways. And that was the great part of the story.
He got sucked in, right?
But he wasn't even there and got in the most trouble out of anybody, which was the beauty of it. And I had the baby face then, right? I would look like I was like 16. So he thought I could get away with anything, which I couldn't. But that was a great story. But Scotty would always, and you talk about him coaching, but it's not controlling. He just wanted to make sure everybody was doing what they needed to be doing, even at that point, to get better as the season went along. So were we in the right? No, we were in the wrong, 100%. Everybody makes mistakes. Did we make that mistake again? Well, for sure we did, as the years went along. But now that you look back on it, they're great stories to laugh at with a bunch of great guys and people in them.
How would you describe your relationship with Chris Draper? Because you guys came up together. I mean, and he arrived as a Red Wing for $1, right? He was claimed on waivers for $1.
He's a leader. He's Chuck Norris. I call him Chuck Norris because he does everything the right way. He's a fighter. He's a battler. He never goes down. Everything that Chuck Norris was in all those 80s movies, which he was in a lot. Him and Steven Seagal were battling for that title of the best action hero in the 80s.
And found a pretty good gig with Christy Brinkley on the whatever the exercise machine was.
It still does it, and he still looks good. If you ever stay up late at night, you can catch it every now and then. But Drapes, I room with Drapes at the Riverfront Apartments. We're going to room together. I can't remember the name. I was thinking
right next to Joe Louis Arena.
He could correct me. I think it was like 1401 or something. Right next to Joe Louis. We're going to live there because we lived in Farmington Hills the year before. Driving down, we're down there anyways all the time. We're going to stay down there. So we ended up staying down there. So Drapes was he was in charge of everything. We'll be honest. So we're in the elevator one day, and I hadn't paid the rent, and I was like behind on a lot of things, so I wasn't focused. The bills, whatever else. And we're in there with the owner or the manager of Riverfront, and she's eyeballing Drapes, mad at him because we haven't paid our stuff and done our stuff. And I'm in there, and I have no idea this is going on. I'm just standing there, and Drapes goes, "You don't even effing know who that was, did you?" I go, "Who?" Goes, "That's the manager. You haven't paid the bills as long as she's mad at me." Again. And I'm just like, again, he's in trouble for what I did. So he's great that he's put up with me for so many years. But Drapes is that type of guy that will put up with a lot of people's BS, but still be a great friend. So you got to appreciate him for that.
Could you walk anywhere in downtown Detroit and not get recognized? I mean, could you feel the eyeballs on you all the time?
And when do we, 97, 98?
Yeah.
97 when we were winning?
Sure.
No. I'll never forget. We were hanging out eating because you'd eat at the Pontchartrain had the restaurant there. We're eating outside there by the pool, and it was I wasn't even in the finals yet. I think it was the conference finals against Colorado. There was people everywhere in Red Wing jerseys,
just staring at you, right?
No, but just walking around, going to places. The vibe was great, and certain things you never forget. Like you never forget the parades. You never forget going out to Chelly's, like we spoke of the other day. Speak of like driving, and I wasn't even playing. Vernie was playing. Driving to the rink that Game 4 against Philadelphia, the downtown. It was unbelievable. It was waves and just droves of people everywhere waiting for that moment that they've been waiting for so long.
Here's a question I have for you. How many tickets did you get out of because you were a member of the Detroit Red Wings?
I got out of one with Jenna. The God bless her.
Right.
We can say that.
Your wife. Jenna's your wife.
Yes, she's a saint. Anyways, we're driving up north. I don't even remember why, and I got pulled over, and she told the cop to handcuff me. And he did. and she took a picture and sent it to everybody. So, he noticed who I was. And she goes around, talks to the guy and goes, yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, could you handcuff him? Now he gets like cuffs are on him on the front of the hood. And she's snapping photos to send it to everybody that's already there saying, we won't be making it. Chris got arrested. Oh, yeah.
That's got to be a Christmas card, right?
Well, you should see the Christmas card she sent out before. Not good.
Yeah.
From Bad Moments, she made a calendar of me once. We don't want to even bring that up.
Yeah.
But as much as I joke around and trick, she is like one above me even. I have to admit. She's better than
a prankster?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. At my most vulnerable, too.
Well, she has shared with me some of your pictures that we have been able to put up on billboards. And
which, like you, she relishes and enjoys my pain a lot.
Well, the story was that we found a picture of you with a pacifier in your mouth.
Yep.
That's the one on your birthday.
Yep.
We put up on the billboard on the Southfield Freeway. Actually, 5 or 6 billboards around town, and at the top of the Greektown Casino, overlooking all of Detroit.
Then you would really enjoy the famous calendar she had put together for me. And we had went out a bunch of these Christmas parties the one year, and Christopher John Osgood had too much Fireball, which he's not good at. So Jen is driving me home, and he wasn't going to make it. You know when you get in the car and you feel like you're on the you're at Cedar Point, on the circular rides.
Okay.
So I slipped out of the vehicle, and now I'm on my front lawn on all fours. Well, I can't stop it, but she's got an old the camera
right.
like it's like the paparazzi's taking pictures of me.
35 millimeter, yeah.
So she's snapping pictures of me there, and she's snapping all these photos. Oh, yeah. Now we got a 12-month calendar of all these photos.
Oh, my gosh.
And, by the way, stamps on mail. Sent them on mail.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Our special guest is here. Mike Tirico,
yes.
The legend that he is, will join us after a quick break from Belle Tire. Ozzy and Keats will continue in a skosh. Hey, Belle Tire is changing tires and changing the tire game with the lowest tire prices, free flat repairs, tire rotations, and alignment checks. And they're not just changing tires. For decades, the Belle Tire Hockey Club has helped young athletes develop their skills, chase their dreams, and even reach the NHL. Stop by or go to belletire.com to see how they're different. All right, he's still a young guy, but he is a broadcasting legend as we welcome everybody back to Ozzy and Keats, and we're proud that he calls Michigan home, and Mike Tirico joins us from wherever Mike Tirico happens to be. What is your Delta status? I mean, what's above platinum? Is there a titanium or a diamond that you've reached?
Yeah. There is a nice Delta 360 that I'm the top 1% of Delta flyers, I think. So I get to know Metro on a pretty regular basis, which is quite all right. Actually, it is. First off, it's great to be with you guys. Second, I am old. Third, it's great to be in Detroit. And that was a big part of where we live. My wife is from Trenton, so I'm downriver by marriage, I like to say to everyone. But this has been home longer than any other place that I've lived. And to be honest, as we were looking, the job requires so much travel. This was an ideal spot because you can get everywhere.
Sure.
You're in the middle of the country, quote unquote, right? So that LA trip is not 6 hours like it is from the East Coast, where I was born and raised and went to college at Syracuse. So it proved to be ideal geographically. It proved to be ideal in terms of being close to my wife's family. And it's proved to be the best thing we've ever done. Our kids were raised in Ann Arbor through the school system there. And we've been there for more than a quarter century and absolutely love all things Michigan. So it is home. And thanks to my friends at Delta, I can get everywhere from State College to Shanghai sometimes, a direct flight.
Well, give me your best flying advice. I mean, in terms of when you need to sleep or when you need to shut it down and get some rest. What secrets can you share with the rest of us slugs who only fly occasionally?
Yeah, I'm one of those bad guys, Keats. I can sleep anywhere at any time. If you tell me that I've got 2 hours, I can shut it down for 2 hours wake back up and
That's good.
continue on with the day, which, as you know, right, think of all the West Coast trips, or think of all the overtime playoff hockey when we were in the Western Conference and you were living at 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m., and then you turn around for the early mornings. I remember so many of those nights of being in our TV room in my office and watching overtime, double overtime. And you're like, all right, it's 1:15. Do you go to sleep or do you stay up? And then you got to turn around and leave the next morning at 6 a.m. for a flight. But no, I've been blessed with the ability to fall asleep on short notice for a couple hours and get back ready to go.
Are you an aisle or a window guy?
I'm an aisle guy. I'm an aisle guy. I like to have my own unfettered access to the restroom.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I'm in starstruck right now. Enjoy everything you
please,
do.
Ozzy.
I gotta be, but all the events you've done, being a big Detroit fan, you're talking about the Red Wings and the playoffs. They're staying up late, and I love when you're doing the Lions game. Just a little bit of your take on Dan Campbell,
Sure.
Because everybody has their own.
Oh, sure.
And we love the guy here. Hopefully, we can get him on one day. But your take on him and your when meeting him, what you thought?
So, you kind of look at these stupid things in life. I actually covered Dan briefly when he was the interim coach in Miami, when they had to go through their coaching change.
Yeah.
So from playing days to coaching, you do something long enough, you start to see players become coaches, players become GMs, players become owners now, which is kind of scary in some ways. Guys who covered like Grant Hill, right? Covered Grant Hill, and now Grant Hill is in ownership with the Atlanta Hawks, right?
Yep.
You're like, wait, what happened in my life?
Yeah.
And then, as you guys know, and Keats, you've seen this a ton of times, you get the next generation players, and you're going, okay, I remember when your dad was called up in the league, and now you're getting called up in the league. What the heck's happening? So I've been around Dan, or watched him and observed him for many years. Chris, I think you can speak to this better than John or myself. There's something that is so powerful in a locker room about an authentic connection. And that's what Dan Campbell is. Like, that whole toughness, grit, build a team, be physical, that's not play. That's real.
Yeah.
That's him. And that comes through in the way his team plays and the guys who want to play for him. You haven't heard one guy leave here and say bad things about the head coach. Not one, right?
No.
And he's built something from really very, very little. And that talks about the character. So I think the fact that you can't BS guys when you get up in front of them every day is part one. And part two of that is he played that way. He lived that life. So he can relate to the majority of the roster, which are not the star guys, right?
Yeah.
So all that is very real. And then when you're around them in a non-football moment, I've had a couple of those. The Mackinac Policy Conference up on the island in May, Dan and his wife Holly were there, and Dan was one of the speakers. Wow. And just talking to Dan, and we're sitting there having a beer and just talking, and that's still him. So it's not in character. That's who he is, and that's what makes it genuine and real. And guys will run through a wall for it.
I think when I think of Dan Campbell, I think of Jimmy Leland.
Yeah.
I think of Scotty
Jim
Bowman.
Sure. Yeah.
Although those coaches are a lot like Dan Campbell, has a lot of similarities with those coaches' leadership. Guys follow them. It's great to have him here with the Lions because we so much want them to do well. And Mike, the other thing, you've done so many different sports, so many, the Olympics. Right. I love when you're on golf. But I just want, you don't have to answer. What is your favorite event to do?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I thought of something else, which I'll add on to in a second with those coaches. But my favorite one is the next one, and that sounds silly.
Yeah.
But I learned a hard lesson early on from an executive in professional sports. I was calling one sport and doing a promotion for the Masters.
Okay.
And I said, man, can't wait to be at Augusta National. There's no better place in sports than Augusta. And I heard the next day from that executive who said, you're talking to our audience here. So maybe you don't want to tell them that Augusta is the best place in sports. And that was kind of a, lesson of that phrase that's not very popular with parents for kids: be where your feet are, or even coaches with young teams: be here, be present. Don't be thinking about all this other stuff. And it taught me to appreciate the audience. And John knows this, having done so many post games and pre games for so many different teams, under so many different mic flags and networks and all that. The fans who are watching you, they want the Tigers. They're happy to hear about the Wings. They're happy to hear about the Lions. They're happy to they want the Tigers. They don't want anything else. And knowing your audience and speaking to them is direct. So that's given me the career power, impetus, foundation of just enjoy the next thing you're doing and don't pick out a favorite. So if any of us who are blessed to have multiple kids, it's that old line where I love them all the same in different ways. And I do feel that about sports. Just one quick add-on you mentioned I didn't think of.
Sure.
You know, a coach in Detroit whose stay wasn't that long but deserves that kind of respect and credit is Larry Brown.
Yeah.
Yes.
When Larry Brown was here with the Pistons, I just covered Chauncey Billups as the Trailblazers head coach. And we had a chance for 15 minutes to kind of reminisce about the 04 championship team. And we talked about the selfless nature of that team and all of that. But I asked Chauncey about IQ, because if you think of those players, and Chauncey and Rip Hamilton and Rasheed Wallace came in, and Ben Wallace and all the guys off the bench, real great basketball IQ team. And he said, yeah, we all had that. And then Larry Brown, who is a lifer in the game, his IQ took us to the next level. He could speak to, I'm sure you had this, Ozzy,
Yeah.
with the great teams that you were on, right?
Yes.
Where you got a bunch of guys who get the game, but now a coach who's at that level too, he can speak a different language to all of you and elevate. And I thought that was really fascinating. It got me just thinking, Larry doesn't get mentioned often enough because the stay was so short, as it was everywhere for Larry. He doesn't get mentioned often enough as those great coaches, you know?
Well, two things. I worked in Denver before I came back to Detroit, but I grew up here in Michigan, as everybody knows, and
Right.
I got to know Doug Moe, who was the coach of the Nuggets, and he and Larry Brown went to college together at North Carolina, and they're best pals, and so I got to know Larry a little bit before he came to Detroit. And I'm old enough to have covered Chauncey Billups at George Washington High School in Denver, Colorado, before he went to the University of Colorado, and then eventually found his way to Detroit. And to see him come back to Little Caesars Arena, you know, as an older gentleman now with, you know, a bit of a beard and all that kind of stuff, sort of reminded me of where I've been. But to your point about looking ahead to the next one, is probably the question I get asked most. I don't have your litany of events to be covered, but people ask me often, which is your favorite season, Red Wings or Tigers? And the real answer is, at the end of one, I'm always ready for the next one. I mean, in part because, you know, you want other faces to interview and get to know and all that kind of stuff, but you like them equally, to your point about, you know, you look at them as your kids, but you're ready for the next one, whatever that might happen to be. And it's a pretty good reminder that they're equal in your own mind.
So the same way I think football free agency just starts here in March, right? And part of me is thinking, okay, so what does that mean when they lose this guy and they bring on this? How is that going to match up? We'll get there, right? That's sitting off in July and August. We'll get there. So just that having something fresh and new, I think, is the renewal for us who are really blessed to do multiple sports. And I talked to Jason Benetti about this often. Is you know, one of my friends and part of our Syracuse Mafia of sportscasters over the years, and just the ability to do a lot of sports really well takes a time and takes a passion for it, John. And you know it. How many American League relievers have you seen? Have you written down on your scorecard over the years? Right?
A ton.
Here's another guy. Here's another guy.
Yeah.
But your interest stays piqued by the next guy from Cleveland who's coming in with this wicked splitter, right? Because you have to tell the audience, hey, they got a great back end of the bullpen, and this guy who's just come up from the minors is the guy. And that's the joy of waking you up every day to do the job the right way, which you've done for so many years.
Well, I'm often reminded of this when I've gone to spring training in Lakeland, and you look off to the side and you see the minor league camp, and you realize you're looking at, I don't know, 30 or 40 guys, and the understanding that the next year or two, those guys are going to be coaching their high school team, right? That will have been as close as they've been to realizing a dream. And when you're covering the athletes at the level that they are when we cover them, how good those athletes happen to be.
It's so true. And John, I was thinking about that just a few nights ago. I was watching some of the college basketball conference tournaments. End of the game, and the coach gives a hug to the senior or the guy who's been there for 1 year. The way it works now, it's the last time he's going to play for him, the big hug, the emotional hug. And then the walk-ons get their minute to get in the box score to play, right? And the announcer for this game did that job that I always love when people do. He made sure he mentioned every walk-on who came in, because for that player,
Sure.
that's their forever. That's their forever. In the old days, VHS tape. Now it's their forever link that they'll have on their phone. Hey, Dad played 37 seconds in the ACC tournament. Mom played 29 seconds in the Big Ten tournament. Get out of here. Here's the link, and here's the announcer saying Mom's name. Right. That's our, for the people who don't do this for a living. That's our responsibility to the industry and to the athletes. And John, that's one thing I appreciate in your career. You've had this incredible career in Detroit and beyond, and it's never about you, and it's always about the teams you're covering. And you've never been the guy who has said the wild, outrageous, silly thing, but you're honest with the fans, right? Like when bless you for the number of Tiger games that you went through for the last 7-8 years. I talked to Dan Dickerson about this winter. Bless you guys for going night after night and just like, hey, pitching's not that good right now, and that's a reality. Right. But you do it without having to, carry this big hammer, and that's rare to do and hard to do, and it's why so many of us appreciate all you've done for all these years.
I want to get Ozzy in here, but I want to ask you this, and I think you'll appreciate from where I sit, and maybe you can relate to this. Have there been broadcasting partners that you really didn't care for that you've been forced to work with, as I have been with the guy who is sitting next to me?
Yeah, I know. It's hard, isn't it? When there's somebody sitting with you who just kind of wears you out.
Oh, my goodness.
I've been very fortunate.
I'd say Bill Walton, but he's no longer with us, so I can't do it.
What a beauty, eh? What a beauty.
Billy was the best. I said that to somebody the other day. Like, think about, we're starting the NBA on NBC.
Congrats, by the way.
October. Thank you. We're excited to be back in that mix. And I just said to somebody the other day, we're getting to work with Reggie Miller and Jamal Crawford, both of whom are wonderful people, great talent in the league over the years. They're going to be our lead analysts on different games, but I'll get a chance to work with both as the year goes on. And you're so lucky to sit next to people who trust you, right? That you're not going to bury them. You're not going to put them in a really tough spot by asking an impossible question. That in your case, look, you're working for the home team. You don't want to make the home team look bad, but you want to build that person's credibility, lean into their expertise. Ozzy, you know what it feels like to be on a team that doesn't support you defensively. Well, rarely did that happen for you, right? But you understand that.
I know Lindstrom and Chelios always get all the kudos every time I got to hear about it. I was just back there along for the ride. I know all the
you bail their butts out on a regular basis. We know, don't worry. But you've got to trust. You got to trust that person, if we're in my seat and John's seat, that they trust you to share their expertise, and that's what we're doing. All we do in this job is we document, inform, and entertain. We document the game as it's going on or what just transpired, and we inform the audience because they've got a job. They're working in the auto industry, the banking industry, the insurance industry. They don't have time to go through all this stuff, and they want to care about the people. So we've got to inform you, and then you've got 1,000 channels. I can go watch some repeat of some show on Netflix or watch some HGTV show on how to remodel a house at any point during the night. But you guys got to be entertaining between periods, and you guys got to be entertaining before and after baseball games. And that's the fun of what we do. And to sit next to people who can make you feel like, hey, I was there, I know what's going on, is so much fun. That's why you guys are so good at doing this.
Yeah, we're so fortunate. I'm fortunate to work with John, have mentors like Mickey Redmond, Ken Daniels. We all have people we look up to, yourself included. Speaking of fortunate, how much do you appreciate doing Detroit sporting events, whether it's the Lions, the Red Wings back against the Blackhawks in 2017? Are those?
Yeah, you got some hockey in your background, right? For NBC Sports Network when it was a thing.
I did, Chris. I'll give you and John a quick story about the hockey thing, which was fun. So you both know Eddie Olczyk very well.
Yes,
terrific broadcaster, terrific player, one of the great American-born players, all that stuff. Edzo is as good a guy as anybody you'll ever find. He's also a really good horse racing handicapper.
He is, yes.
So much so that After a couple of can he really do this? Edzo became the NBC Sports horse racing
Yeah.
handicapper
Yeah.
on the Triple Crown races, and he still does it too, even though he's working at TNT and the Breeders' Cup. So, so Edzo is at the Kentucky Derby. It's year 2. The hockey playoffs are always going on during the Derby, and there's a place a couple blocks away from the hotel in Louisville. Get a burger, get a beer, watching the game. It's myself, Edzo, and our NBC boss, and we're watching the game, and I'm asking Edzo, like, will these guys just play the second power play first? Like, why do they keep going with this first power play? It's not doing a damn thing. And then 50 seconds left in the penalty, the second power play unit comes on, and they get the chances. Like, why won't he just make the switch as a coach? And Edzo says, if you do that, then your first line guys, their heads are hanging. Then you're going to lose those guys. So we're going back and forth on this, right? So our boss is sitting here. He's like, you really are into hockey? I'm like, yeah, I love the sport. I grew up a Rangers fan in New York. It's the sport that I, along with baseball, probably enjoy the most, but I never cover. And so my boss says, do you think you could call a hockey game? And that's always when your boss tests you. What are you going to say? No? Yeah, sure I can. Conversation ends. This is late April, early May, before the Derby. Fast forward to September, I get a call from my boss. Like, hey, look, hockey schedule's coming out. I got you with Edzo for a couple of games, Red Wings, Blackhawks, and then a Penguins game down the line. Then we'll see how it goes, and maybe we'll give you a few more later on in the year. I go, what are we talking about? And I go, well, you said you could do a game, so let's find out. The game's only on NBCSN. Don't worry about it. It's just Red Wings. It's just Red Wings Hawks. Just an original 6 game on national cable. Like, come on, you can throw me into the deep end here. So I did it. Loved it, had the greatest time. Like you say, John, lean on your partner, and got to do some hockey, which was so much fun, especially because it was the Red Wings. I got to do a couple of games there along the way. And I should say, a sidebar to that, I start hanging out at Little Caesars to watch a couple of games in person, watched a lot of TV, come to a game or two as a fan at that point. So I now go sit up in the gondola to go watch the game, and watch sitting over in the press box, and I stroll over between periods, and I see Ken and Mick. And Ken Daniels, like the nicest person on the face of the earth. Kenny's like, I tell him, it's like, what are you doing here? And I tell him, so Kenny goes, come in the booth with me and Mick. I'm like, no, I'm not going to stand in your booth. Come with me and Mick. Of course, I say no. How do you say no to Mick after Kenny says, come on, right? So now I'm in there with those guys. And Kenny says, just stand right here, stand between us. I'm like, no, he's like, we've worked together for 50 years. We don't need to stand next to each other. So I got to stand next to those guys and watch a period from there, as I'm just thinking about, okay, how am I going to do this and execute it? Like, Ken Daniels and Mickey are the best. And we always text back and forth. I've got a buddy who covered hockey at NBC. We always text back and forth like, hey, you're watching Ken and Mickey? They're hysterical. Like, they keep the night going in a bad game. They're the best of the best. So that just is an example of being able to be around the area and know people who are so good and so helpful. But man, covering the Wings was great for a couple of games. Covering the Lions has been out of this world. If you ask me at the end of this run to list maybe some of the 10 best games I've done, undoubtedly those 2 playoff games last year at Ford Field will go on that list. I've never been in a football stadium like that and been able to share that emotion. So yeah, it's nice to have home games. It's nice to see the Detroit teams do well. John can tell you, we can remove ourselves emotionally, right, and not be fanboy in the booth. But you always like to see the home teams do well because it keeps the home fans happy,
Sure.
your family happy, and it's always good for our area.
Hey, you are the best. We can't
Great.
thank you enough for carving out some time for us. We're big fans, as we mentioned, and safe travels, I guess. So we can say that to you more than any person other on the planet with your
Well,
Delta
thank you,
special
and-
status that you have.
And I'm stealing 30 seconds of your pod to thank you for all the late nights, all the pre-games, all the days that you've just kind of taken care of Detroit fans. And I've been a Detroit fan, especially the Tigers and the Wings. Those are the 2 sports that I don't cover professionally. So we've had a season ticket since opening day against Seattle in the snow at Comerica in 2000. And man, John, you've done this job, your job, as well as anybody across the country. And I'm in the industry and travel, and you get to see pregame and postgame hosts in every city from Seattle to Miami, from Boston to LA. And your viewers and listeners are just blessed to have you and your abilities for the last quarter century, more than that, geez, with all the different Mike flags from Pass through FanDuel, and maybe it'll change one more time before you're done. But man, you've been like top of the list in what you do, and thank you for all that you've done. And I look forward to seeing you around town with a beer and a beard and enjoying a game.
Attaboy. Well, that means a lot. That means a ton coming from you. Thank you very much. We will cross paths soon. The great Mike Tirico joining Ozzy and Keats. We'll continue. We'll wrap things up after this from Belle Tire. Big thanks to Belle Tire here for supporting this podcast and for always putting the customer first. Whether it's offering the lowest tire prices, getting you in and out faster, or making tire buying and auto care easier, Belle Tire is changing tires and changing the experience for the better. Stop by Belle Tire or visit belletire.com to see the difference for yourself. All right, welcome back. And again, thanks to Belle Tire and thanks to Mike Tirico. How good was he?
Oh, outstanding. Watched him over the years, the Olympics, and now he's going to do the NBA. Always watches his at golf and NFL. I don't think there's a smoother guy around.
He's the best.
He's the best.
He's the best.
And genuine.
And I'll share with our viewer and listeners that we said goodbye to him on the air, and then we chatted for a few minutes.
Yeah.
The stuff we chatted about in the few minutes after we finished the interview was probably as good as the interview was, because he wanted to keep going and share some stories with you.
Just great stuff, and we hit a lot of areas. You can't get to everything with him. He's done everything there is to do, marquee events. But you mentioned the Rangers. Then I happened to play for the Islanders. We talked about the rivalry. So I got the opportunity to play a game on St. Patrick's Day in Madison Square Gardens with the Islanders. 3:00 start that was. Needless to say, probably the wildest game I've ever been involved in. And I wasn't obviously with the fights here 2 years in a row with the Avalanche.
Right.
That one was darn close. A lot of fights in the crowd, a lot of on the ice. I think it was 3 line brawls. And then got the opportunity to take the train back after the game with some Ranger fans, which is always nice, especially after you beat the Rangers there.
Did they know you were you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The Ranger fans are very aware, very dedicated fans. So are Islanders, for that matter. I remember I was with the Islanders, came there from Detroit, was picked up. Didn't know what to expect. They finished like 31st. I think there's 31 teams then, maybe 30. Dead last. And we started the year 10-0-1, 10-0-2. Didn't lose for the first 12 games. Did great. Right. Played the Rangers. Now, I'm not aware of the Rangers rivalry. I don't know, because I haven't seen it. I should, but I don't. And the ranks,
clueless, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Possibly, yes. But it was a nice evening because Meadow from Sopranos sang the anthem, which was very nice because the red carpet came.
Jamie Lynn Sigler is her name.
Came
real
right
life.
And it was surprisingly that the red carpet was wheeled right almost to the blue paint where I was standing. So that was a nice touch.
Of all the things you remember,
Yeah.
Meadow is the one that pops
Christy
to
Brinkley
mind.
was there because she was a fan and her kids played hockey.
Right.
So she was always there
Married
as well.
to Billy Joel at
Married
the
to
time,
Billy
who lived
Joel.
on Long Island.
And
right?
I was all with this, and the rink's shaking for the game. Like, geez, the fans are fired up tonight for this game. And I never even clued into me that this was a big rival, which I should have, because you think the Mets, Yankees, you think of all these games there and New York fans. But I really haven't been indoctrinated into the way a New York fan reacts until I watched a Yankee game in a bar with Yankee fans, which was an experience. Well, we lose to the Rangers. They have Messier, Eric Lindros. They got a lot of stars in their team. Mike Richter is their goalie. We lose 7-3 at home. And I'm on my nets right. It's only a little short trip to the corner where you go off the ice. And these fans come around the area where we walk off. And I'm like, what? Everybody's hitting my pads. It's okay.
Right.
We're giving the old, but
Good
usually
game, good game.
It wasn't
good
a good
game.
game,
Right.
but it was okay. That stuff. And it was like F-bombs, and you guys suck, and you can't lose to the Rangers ever. Don't ever do that again.
These are your people.
Oh, yeah. And I got in the room. I remember I was sitting there, and I looked at Garth Snow. I go, I guess we can never lose to the Rangers. And that was the first time I knew, damn it, this is a huge rival. We got to beat the Rangers no matter what. So we could have lost 5 in a row coming into that. If we beat the Rangers, we were the gods for that day.
I have one New York story to share with you. So I'm covering the Tigers at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And so we're doing a hit in the right field bleachers at Yankee Stadium. At the time, George Steinbrenner was still alive and was aware of anything that happened at the stadium. It might have been the year before. My chair was on the grass and not on the walk in front of the dugout, and somebody came rushing over to get my chair off the grass. Anyway, so we're in right field, and I'm talking on camera, and all of a sudden, and I'm wearing my usual sport coat and tie, and the entire right field bleachers start chanting, "Lose the tie." No, first of all, it was buy, 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 sell, 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 like I'm a stockbroker that's wearing a tie to a game. And then it was lose the tie. And so I play along and I take the tie off. And then the entire right field section is chanting, "You still suck. You still suck." I mean, thousands of people.
Directed at you.
And so now here comes more security people. And they quickly escort us out of Yankee Stadium. I'm part of the broadcast team that's working the game. And so all we did was we scurried outside and then came back in the press entrance. So we got back in, but it's just like they don't like people, doing TV when the ball game was going on.
No, I mean, New York fans are aware. I can say that. I had a great year my first year there. Played like 72 games, made the playoffs the first time in God knows when. It was 15 years. Next year, Christopher John Ozzy got off to a rough start. He wasn't sharp. Wasn't focused.
Let me try to relate to that.
Yeah. And it needless to say, they had drafted Rick DiPietro first overall. Well, they started chanting his name right away. So now I'm in there with Potvin and Fleury, and I'm thinking, hey, I got this place licked. I had this great year. We made the playoffs.
You liked living there in Long
I loved
Island.
it.
Yeah, right.
We're back on the map, and the fans, very like Detroit Red Wing fans. Same rink, the Nassau Coliseum, loud, ruckus. It was a fun place to play in the playoffs, and great. It reminded me a lot of being here. So I still cheer. I'm an Islander fan still. I mean, they've been a little rough of late, but I still enjoy going back there and seeing a lot of people I know. And I remember I wasn't the only one that was off the snide. I mean, Mike Milbury was the GM at the time, and he used to go to this old press box up there, and maybe can I say that? Jump, Mike, jump right out of the. I mean, if you're not performing, and I would think every Yankee player can attest to this, or any player that's ever played in New York, they will let you know about it in a hurry.
Right. And full circle, the Islanders coach these days by your old friend Patrick Waugh.
Patrick Waugh, and that surprised me. Not as much a surprise as Gar Snow being the GM, who was my ex.
That's right.
Goaltending partner.
Right.
But the Islanders built a new rink. Nassau Coliseum is not there anymore, which they played in a couple times. I got a chance to go back there doing games with Ken Daniels, which was a thrill for me to do games in there. But I got to tell you, I mean, I think of fan bases that are awesome. I think Detroit, obviously, we have to. I'm not saying that just because I played here. New York fans still. I mean, I remember going to a Jets game. I thought I'd stand up, get a good look at the field goal's going to get kicked. Oh, no. Sit the F down. What are you, and you can't do anything. It's a different place, but an awesome place. Yeah. But there's certain rules that you got to abide by that if you don't know them, they'll let you know about it right away.
Right. And when you walk around town, there's an F-bomb that might be thrown in your direction. Maybe that's coming from me.
That's
just coming from me. I don't know. Hey, we've been thrilled to have Mike Tirico on. It's always a thrill to sit next to you. We're thrilled that Belle Tire is continuing their sponsorship. That's going to do it for this installment of Ozzy and Keats. We're not great. We're just okay. We'll see you next time.